we talked about the overall strategy. We narrowed that down or extended it out, depending on how you want to look at it, with all the deal structures that populate those strategies. So we have that in our brain. Once we have that in our brain, we have to be able to download it out our brain, off our tongue, and into the seller's brain so that they can make a decision that hopefully makes us money and gets them what they want. And to do that, we have to have a certain approach with that seller. And that approach, generally speaking, is designed to elicit an offer out of them, not us making them an offer. That's the paradigm shift. To elicit an offer out of them that they haven't yet contemplated. They already made us a price offer. Before we even called them, we probably already saw what the price is. Or if they weren't even selling it and we were just calling them through our marketing or something like that, they'll tell us what it's very easy for people to name a number, to name a price. It's very easy for a seller to construct an offer to us on price. Now, oftentimes, so they're looking for us, calling them to make them an offer, right? And that's the way the game is normally played, but that's not the game we play. Because how could we possibly even have an offer for them without knowing what they're even willing to do? We know what they want price-wise. We can talk about that. We can work within that dynamic, but we have to learn if they are open to taking payments to get a little bit more money and not have to pay commissions and fees and have their equity siphoned away by middlemen and middlewomen. And if they're willing to do that, well, we have to figure out how we would structure that. So if you're willing to do that, tell me, do you have the house free and clear? If they do, then there's your answer on that. If they don't, okay, what's the mortgage balance and what's the payment you're making on it? So we can structure something around that so you're not coming out of pocket, and so that we know what to pay off when we're ready to pay it off. And so we can determine how much equity you have so we can figure out a plan to pay you that. That's why we need the mortgage information, because people will be like, why do you need my mortgage information? It's not, they just don't understand. So we explain it to them. And if they are open to, number one, providing that, I ain't doing no deal with someone who's not providing that. Some of y'all send in deal evaluation forms. It doesn't have that in there. And they're like, well, can we do the deal with, because you didn't want to tell me? No, we got to know, we have to know what the underlying financing is. If we're going to do a deal where the seller's financing us, it's extremely important. Not just extremely important, it's vital, critical. It is a must know. And if they won't provide it, we move them down the continuum. But we are going to elicit an offer out of them, because they'll be like, oh, well, just make me an offer. Like, what are you willing to do? Well, I don't really know. It depends on what you're willing to do. So tell me, you already told me price. What would you be willing to do in terms of the time frame for me paying you off, in terms of what that monthly payment is going to look like, and in terms of when I actually start making you payments? In other words, is there a down payment or not, right? How close to zero can we get? We got to learn those things. So we help them make that offer to us. Okay. We help them make that offer to us. Now, in doing that, there's going to be, in that approach, that's the approach. With that approach, there are going to be questions, concerns, objections. Oh my God. That's okay. Those are signs that they're listening, signs that they might be interested in your proposal of taking monthly payments, not like the granularity of the proposal, which they have to give us. We need to learn how to answer those questions, concerns, objections. And then when we get the answers to those questions, we are going to test for veracity, test for truthfulness, whether or not they meant what they said, without negotiating it too hard over the phone. And we'll send them the paperwork, which is what we're going to be covering next week. So these are the last things that we're going to do right before paperwork, and see if they are down to get down. And if they are, then we're rolling. Our objective is to get contracts, right? Because the contracts can either be closed on, sold. You have an asset as soon as you have a contract. Understand that you have an asset as soon as you have a contract. You're controlling a property worth hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. As soon as you have that contract, you have an asset. It's the easiest way to acquire assets in the history of mankind. It's just getting a contract on something, especially if it's assignable. All our contracts are. And if it doesn't specifically say that it's not assignable, it is assignable. Now, once we understand how to do all of that, what's left? Well, we got to get people to call, right? We got to get people to call. That's why we've been talking about marketing. And then once we have people to call so that we can do those deals and we get the contracts, then what's next? Well, we got to get our buyers. So we're going to go through the contracts to buy for where we're buying from sellers next week, possibly a little bit tomorrow. And then we're going to talk about how we get our buyer in place and then the paperwork that goes along with buyers. And at that point, you'll be through the complete cycle on terms deals that involve monthly payments until we pay the seller off in full. But we are going to run across deals that are just, your run-of-the-mill cash deals, rehabs, wholesale assignments, those kinds of things. And just want to make sure you understand the best ways to do that might differ a little bit than what's being taught out there. There's some proper ways to do things that maybe y'all haven't been exposed to. Much simpler model, wholesaling, rehabbing, fix and flip type stuff. Easier to get that in the brain, it's not easier to get the deal, but it's easier to perform the tasks associated with it, in the sense that's not even the right way of putting it. It's much easier to explain. I'll give you X. No, I got to have Y. Okay, I'll come up a little bit. You come down a little bit. I'll come up a little bit. You come down a little bit. That's super easy, right? That's not what we do in the stuff that I just presented to you. So if you can learn the stuff that I just presented to you, but have available the right ways of doing things in sort of the old traditional way, you're going to be in a position to make a lot of money, especially if you go get that realtor license, which I keep saying you should do. And if you're not going to do it, have someone on your team, very close friend or family member is fine. But I'm not just talking about a business partner or someone that you know loosely. Try to have someone on your team who is an actual family member, somebody, you love each other. Because realtors, I don't care how good of a friend they are, they're not supposed to be like quid pro quoing back and forth on things, so to speak, but within, a marriage, if you're a female investor, let's say it's a husband, like a female male type marriage, if the female is the investor and the male is the realtor, and the female is just feeding deals to the male realtor because he just wants to watch ball games on TV, but he lets his wife use the MLS and he just does everything for her. He does it in a regulated way because he had to take the test and everything, but lets her keep the money. Could work the other way, right? With the guy being the investor and the wife being the realtor. Well, there's nothing that says that in a marriage, or father-son, mother-daughter, vice versa, dad, mom, whatever, that, that money that goes into the bank account can't be used to buy handbags or season tickets to games, whatever. Anyway, you get the point. Don't mean to digress so much. So that's what's coming at you. Now, what we did with the lead generating is we talked about getting good at this approach and this objection handling. Testing your ability to know what to do and testing your ability to know what to say without spending a lot of money on marketing, because you can get those deals all day long. When I started in 92, Al Gore didn't invent the internet yet, right? An old joke, but a good one. There was no internet. So we called the usual suspects, and we did deals all the time. You can do those deals still today, believe me. Where do you think realtors are getting their deals from? Some of them are doing a lot of digital marketing, but a lot of them are just calling FSBOs, FURBOs, even expired listings, foreclosures, custom things, right? Let's use those leads, excuse me, first to sharpen our saw. Sharpen the saw and get into a position where we know that we can convert, and now we want to scale it up, and now we want to pound advertising materials out there that and go into the paid marketing, which is what we just talked about mostly this week, a little bit last week. So having covered those two elements, now I just want to let you know, because I know a lot of folks that I talk to still do all this old school stuff, which is fine, but I want to give you some perspective on it. Okay, so let's talk about the old school stuff.